My name is Ash Mansour. I'm the president-elect of the Society for Clinical Vascular Surgery. And my task today is to introduce to you your president, Dr. Roddy. So after I've submitted my slides, I realized I put the 50th president, but this may not be accurate since we had a couple of presidents that served a couple of years. So maybe Dr. Roddy is the 47th president of the society. Dr. Roddy has been the president for the last year, and we've had the chance to work with him closely. He's a great clinician and surgeon. He's a great educator, and as some of you know, he's probably the biggest expert on coding for vascular surgery in the world. Dr. Roddy was born in New Jersey on December 8th, 1965, and grew up mostly in the eastern United States, and had, by all accounts, had a great childhood, close to his dad, enjoying the beach. There's an arrow there to, I guess there's like an early exposure to junk food, but we'll come to that in a bit. He had a happy childhood. He loved to be a superhero, as you can see here. This picture taken when he was a youngster. Loved the beach and surfing. Dr. Roddy, this is something that I didn't know, but he became an Eagle Scout, and it is rumored that he has crazy outdoor skills. He's very skilled in doing things outdoors and got his Eagle Scout, and it's been very involved with that throughout. He's been involved in other outdoor activities, and this is the obligatory picture of him when he was in college. He hung out with some cool dudes, and from his CV, he graduated from Georgetown in 1988 with a Bachelor of Science, and then went to Yale Medical School, from which he graduated in 1992, Alpha Omega Alpha. This is a picture with his friends at graduation, and this is in a less stressful situation. You all heard Dr. Conti yesterday, but I found this picture with Dr. Roddy and Mickey Meir, a previous president of this society, and I'm sure Dr. Roddy got some influence from Mickey when they were at Yale together. After training and finishing his general surgery training at Yale, he went to the New England Medical Center where he completed his vascular training. And after graduating, his first real job, and his only real job so far, has been to be part of the Albany Medical Group, working closely with Dr. Clem Darling and the others, and has been really stalwart in that group. Dr. Roddy has served in many, many societies. I listed some of them here, but he ascended to the presidency of a couple of those, including the New England Vascular and the Vascular Endovascular Society, and has served in leadership roles in most of those. But most of you know him mainly from his incredible work with E&M coding, and as you can see from here, he has taught many, many courses about coding, and probably learned this skill from Dr. Zwolak, who's also listed here. So we'll now come to the fun stuff. There's a couple of things I'm going to talk to you about. Dr. Roddy's nickname in the OR, his favorite junk food, and his favorite singer. This is going to be a quiz. Anyway, Dr. Roddy, outside of work, is a husband, father, gamer, traveler, hiker, golfer, skier. He met his wife, Veronica, when he was doing his surgery residency, and they married in June of 1996. and they've had a beautiful family. You can see the picture here with Veronica, as well as Connor, Taylor, and Caitlin. And Caitlin is not here because she's competing at Brown, but at this point I'd like to ask the family to rise and be welcomed by the Society. So thank you for that. And they had a great family life. They do all the usual stuff, going to Disney. Here, Sean is learning to take care of one of his babies. And here he's multitasking, babysitting, as well as working on his computer. Apparently, his favorite pose at home on the weekend is to wear his cargo pants and his favorite T-shirt, and then you can see in his hand there the gaming console, playing his favorite things. He also loved to travel. Some of the pictures here from his international travel, as well as local travel in Hawaii. This was taken in Venice in 2014, New Year's Eve. And here, seen playing golf with Dr. Darling and Dr. Shan. And at the end of his golf at the 19th hole, I guess. The other thing that I didn't know about Sean was that he is into martial arts, and apparently the whole family plays, which is great. Another picture showing the junk food relationship, and that's what happens. But Sean helps at home. He likes to mow the grass, and he's reputed to be a good barbecuer as well. But his real escape is this cabin, which is outside of Albany, where he likes to go and spend his weekends off. Loves skiing, as you can see from the snow here, and skiing with the family. And also in the summertime, they love to climb. And apparently wants to be a 46er, which is somebody who climbs all big mountains in upstate New York. He's a great dad, loves nature, and is a great surgeon. I've had the opportunity to talk to some of his trainees who just love his instruction in the operating room. So this is his favorite singer in the operating room. It's Taylor Swift, and apparently he likes to sing when he's in a good mood. But his teaching has earned him many teaching awards, as you can see here. And when he's not in a good mood, this is a picture of him saying no, and again, Doritos there. That when he's not in a good mood, you have to fear him. But most of the time he's in a good mood, and he loves to play Taylor Swift and Avril Lavigne. And they have a great vascular program in Albany and a great group, and really it's great to have Sean as our president. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you your president, Dr. Sean Roddy.
All right. Thank you, Ash, for that introduction. Good morning. Standing here in front of you as president of this society is one of the greatest honors I will ever achieve. Words cannot express the emotions that occupy this past year, the past few days, and standing here right now. As a first-year fellow, I attended the 1998 SCVS meeting in Coronado, California. The combination of the science, the beautiful venue, and the people was overwhelming. I have attended nearly every meeting since that date. Being on various committees through the years and working with this esteemed executive council has never been work. It's always a pleasure. What we create here at the annual meeting, year after year, is amazing. I hope you're all enjoying the 50th anniversary meeting so far, and I look forward to seeing you at the gala event tonight. I need to express my thanks to many in this room. I am sure that I will forget someone, so I will apologize in advance. I first need to thank my parents. You helped me navigate my life into the profession of medicine and gave me everything I needed to succeed. I will never be able to repay you for your sacrifices and your love. My dad, Richard, could not be here today. He is currently 88 years old and grew up in Detroit. He attended the University of Detroit High School, enlisted in the Marine Corps for 3 years, fighting in the Korean War, and then received 4 college degrees: a bachelor in electrical engineering at University of Detroit, a master's in electrical engineering at RPI, an MBA at NYU, and a JD at Seton Hall. He was a very hard act to follow and is the smartest man I know. He encouraged me to accept nothing less than my best and supported me throughout. He has always provided pearls of wisdom, even when I didn't want to hear it. I thank you and love you always. My mom, Joanne, unfortunately died this past September during my presidency. She was my biggest fan. She told me I could do anything and be anything. Every decision I made, she supported. Whenever I was upset or feeling lost, she would speak to me for hours and everything would be okay. I miss her immensely. Mom, thank you for everything. My little brother Brian is 4 years younger than me, yet towers over me at a height of 6'4" and works in computer science. Now a vice president at Google running their cybersecurity division and living in San Francisco, he chose a profession 180 degrees opposite of medicine. Despite that, he has always provided sage professional advice and provided thoughtful counsel after being bombarded with my complaints about everything. Not just to you, Clem. He and his wife, Kristen, treat my children like they are their own and are beyond generous in all things. I can never thank you both enough. Next, my immediate family. For all the hiking, the trips to Disney World, skiing, travel, the journey in karate with us all attaining black belts together, and our time in Albany and Lake Placid. Thank you. Veronica, you are my soulmate, my partner, my friend, my travel companion. We met in June 1994 in the cardiothoracic ICU at Yale New Haven Hospital. You have supported me even during what I refer to as the dark times. That would be general surgery residency and vascular surgery fellowship. A time without any significant sleep, a time when I ate meals with limited to no nutritional value, and a time when I was a much angrier human being than I am today. Veronica, you have helped raise 3 amazing children. You have allowed me to participate in multiple medical society events, both in person, as well as when I logged hundreds of hours of conference calls. You have made our house a home. For that and more, I love you and thank you. Connor, my amazing son, black belt in karate, one of the most gifted but unfortunately for me fastest skiers I have ever seen in person. A graduate of Boston University, I can't tell you how proud I am of your accomplishments. Now in a master's program at BU, you work so hard studying physiology and preparing for a career in medicine. You will go far in whatever specialty you choose. Taylor, I love the fact that you're the only one in my immediate family that hates medicine and tells us to stop talking about blood and gangrene at the dinner table. You are so kind and caring. Your desire to help make the world a better place through engineering, alternate energies, and improve agricultural farming makes me so proud. You will help our environment, and in the process, make sure everyone around you succeeds. And then there's Caitlin, who couldn't be here. She's the 3rd child, and the 3rd child's always the wild card, the most sassy, the most outspoken, the comedian of the bunch, the one that calls me bruh. And you are quite comfortable eating an uncrustable PB&J sandwich during your high school graduation ceremony, as you can see here. Running through Disney World with you and your enthusiasm doing Space Mountain 6 times in a row is potentially one of my most favorite times in the Magic Kingdom. Your passion for rowing and dedication to the sport has brought you to Brown University, where you're a coxswain for their Division I women's crew team, who was ranked 5th in the nation last year. I am excited to cheer you on as you win races over the next 4 years. You are successful at everything you do, both in academics and sports, and I am so proud of you. To my mentors through the years, Mike Conti and Rick Powell joined the Yale faculty fresh out of fellowship in July 1994. That's when I became a third-year general surgery resident. They inspired me as a trainee toward our specialty. They were young attendings who tolerated me through 3 years of training. I will never forget scheduling an absurd number of open aortic aneurysm repairs for Mike Conti to do it with me at the VA. I have never heard anyone say, "No, no, no," so much as I did while sewing the proximal aortic anastomosis with Mike. Thank you for your patience and your guidance. Dick Gusberg was an amazing technical surgeon, never wearing loops, but sewing with precision, tackling the toughest cases with amazing outcomes. He was a wonderful educator overseeing a weekly teaching conference that helped me steer into academic medicine. Mickey Muir, your loud, booming voice is burned into my brain. From the questions you asked me in medical school, "So, Dr. Roddy, what is heparin?" through the hours of operations as a resident, you continually push me to understand all things vascular, Virchow's triad, what actually is dextran, etc. Thank you. When I made it to Tufts in 1997, I received a phone call in the first week of July from a secretary named Judy that Dr. O'Donnell wanted to meet with me. He was not just a vascular surgeon, but he was also the CEO and president of the New England Medical Center Hospital. I hung up the phone, and the second-year fellow, Sung Kim, told me I was about to get OD'd. Little did I know that OD'd meant that he would challenge me with writing a book chapter or an abstract presentation. In this case, 1 week into fellowship, he asked me to present an abstract he had just had accepted at the New England Society for Vascular Surgery on reimbursement in healthcare. It was called the Balanced Budget Act, Potential Implications for the Practice of Vascular Surgery. I told him I don't know anything about financial matters in our specialty. He told me, don't worry, he would assign the CFO of the hospital to teach me. Needless to say, that tutoring was instrumental, and I figured out the basics of reimbursement in healthcare, and I've learned a little bit more through the years about finances and physician billing. Thank you for that foundation. Bill Mackey was both the Department of Surgery chair as well as vascular division chief during my fellowship. He was a true academician. He was so dedicated to his trainees. He accepted nothing short of perfection in the operating room, a trait I have tried to live up to in my practice. He died suddenly 2 months ago. I fortunately had dinner with him in Newport, Rhode Island last October, and we talked for several hours. My condolences go out to his family. He will truly be missed. It turns out that training continues even after you graduate. When I arrived in Albany, I learned several things I had never known. All carotid endarterectomies need to be done using the eversion technique. I had only done longitudinal endarterectomy and patch in fellowship. Who knew? Thank you, Dr. Darling. All open aortic surgery needs to be done retroperitoneal, despite my training being transabdominal. Again, who knew? All lower extremity bypasses should be in situ whenever possible and require use of the leather valvulotome, no less. Thank you, Dr. Chang. Duraj Shah, you taught me so much about carotid surgery. You were a master surgeon. I will never forget all your tips and tricks in the operating room. Even after doing over 1,000 carotids in my own career, I still hear your voice in my head saying, "Sean, so faster." Ben Chang, one of the best and fastest technical surgeons I have ever seen operate in my life. No maneuver is without purpose. At the private hospital, when he worked with a PA, a femoral tibial in situ bypass was typically done in less than 2 hours. I have learned so much technique and judgment from you, and I will never be able to repay you. Lastly, Clem Darling. Pictured here on the lower right in his natural habitat. Fixing bleeding. Definitely not causing it as far as any of you all know. Clem is a friend, a mentor, an educator, a gifted surgeon, my biggest supporter in the clinical and academic world. I wouldn't be on this podium without his years of support and guidance. He is more generous than anyone I know. He bought me my first suit as a first-year attending when I was broke. As division chief, he has accommodated my travel to the AMA, CPT, and RUC conferences without question for over 15 years. He even went on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at Magic Kingdom with me, as you can see in the lower left. I will never repeat this again to your face, but you have helped me in my personal and professional life more than any person on this earth besides my own family. I can only hope you don't retire before I do. Next, I would like to thank the Executive Council for their hard work to keep our society at the forefront of vascular surgery with great science and outstanding educational opportunities. You can see them pictured here on the screen. Also, I need to pay tribute to the actual members and chairs of the committees. They are at the core of our society, the heart and soul that keeps us going. Thank you for another wonderful year. Over the last 12 months, I have learned actually how much the SCVS staff do to keep our society on track. They remind me of everything I forgot and made me look like I knew what I was doing. I need to express my thanks to the Executive Director, Stan Alger, to Brittany, Shayla, Olivia, Aviana, and all others behind the scene. Today we are attending the Society for Clinical Vascular Surgery's 50th annual meeting. This is an amazing accomplishment. Our society has evolved through the years, grown in numbers, remained inclusive and at the forefront of our specialty, and transformed, in my opinion, to one of the greatest groups of vascular surgeons in the U.S. I don't think that most of our membership knows the true transformation of this society from its origins to now. So I hope to review its history today in my address. Also, this society has pushed vascular surgery education forward in many ways that have actually been adopted by the majority of other vascular surgery societies. To that end, I have interviewed dozens of prior SCVS presidents and members of industry who have attended these symposiums for years, and society staff. To all those who took the time to provide me with their thoughts, recollections, involvement, I thank you. I have tried to synthesize these data in a timeline. Since memory of past events can become blurry as the years pass, I have tried to present a timeline that incorporates all opinions as best as I can construct, so I apologize if anything seems slightly off to any of you. I mean no disrespect. In the 1960s, the specialty of vascular surgery emerged, and these physicians needed to share clinical experiences and working knowledge. The Society for Vascular Surgery had been founded in 1946, and at that time was not as inclusive as it is today. Its membership was comprised mostly of academic surgeons. The private practice community attended these meetings but felt excluded. And gatherings that highlighted general reviews of the specialty with outcomes were not commonplace. Case scenarios and operative techniques were fundamental to growing a national powerhouse of skill and community surgeons. It took the vision, charisma, and technical expertise of a vascular surgeon in the San Fernando Valley in 1969 to make this happen. Peter Samuels, pictured here, started it all. He took an idea, an organization of vascular surgeons outside the SVS that would share knowledge to benefit patients and medical community. He pitched this concept to Wiley Barker, the chief at UCLA, and Max Gaspar at USC. With their blessing, and that of 8 other vascular surgeons listed here, the Society for Clinical Vascular Surgery was born. Dr. Samuels assumed the presidency, and Dr. Greenstone became the secretary-treasurer. Their mission was simple: address the needs of the vascular surgeon in clinical practice. Few words, but a critical mandate. The logo of the society is shown on this slide and is derived from a vascular surgery anastomosis. Alexis Carrel in the early 1900s championed triangulation of the two ends of a vessel with traction sutures prior to their anastomosis, hence the triangle. The circle represents the blood vessel. The surrounding pentagon represents the 5 bases of vascular surgery: anatomy, physiology, pathology, medicine, and surgery. The symbol was envisioned by Peter Samuels and executed by David Sachs. The original State of California Incorporation not-for-profit status letter is shown here, dated October 13th, 1970. In 1970, the group inaugurated periodic gatherings at the Sportsman's Lodge in Studio City, Los Angeles, typically quarterly, but more often when speakers became available. Located off Ventura Boulevard, this was a popular gathering spot for cast and crew in Old Hollywood, including Clark Gable, Bette Davis, John Wayne, Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall, Spencer Tracy, and Katharine Hepburn, to name a few. The meetings provided an opportunity for vascular surgeons to discuss interesting cases and clinical problems. Periodically, a guest speaker was invited to address the group. The first speaker was Gene Stranis from the University of Washington with a talk on the use of the Doppler in vascular surgery. The list of future lecturers included such prominent names as Jack Wiley, Tom Fogarty, Sean Moore, Willem Kolff. They are our golden age. Membership steadily grew. Most of the vascular surgeons practiced in Southern California, and the meeting halls within the Sportsman's Lodge were often standing room only. Information often travels fast in medical communities. News of these small gatherings in Southern California started to spread across the country, and there were no regional vascular surgery societies at this time. I spoke to Michael Gelfand, a general and vascular surgeon who practiced in Schenectady, New York after retiring from the Navy. He joined Bob Blumenberg in practice in the early 1970s. Bob would ultimately become an SCVS president. I had the pleasure of working with both of them at Ellis Hospital in Schenectady when I was a new attending in 1999 after joining the Albany Medical College family practice. I recently asked Mike how someone in an upstate New York private practice would get involved in a Southern California medical group in 1970. He laughed and said that everyone who practiced vascular surgery at that time was desperate for community and knowledge and a place to discuss patients and cases. Vascular surgery was a rapidly growing field with no published guidelines to fall back on. These were private practitioners who attended the SCVS meetings but never felt welcomed. But in 1971, Bob and Mike met Peter Samuels in the halls of the SCVS annual meeting. Happenstance. They started talking about his gatherings in LA. A long dinner followed, and Peter was a true politician, engaging, ready to help, and tired of things not evolving. Bob and Mike, New Yorkers with no real community, flew out to an SCVS quarterly meeting. In California, the 1970s was a pretty different scene. Nice with a purpose, education plus access, nationally recognized guests, and a lot of golf. We all have access to a multitude of national and regional meetings today. Hard to imagine our own trajectories without a trusted community now. This was not the case in the early 1970s. Attendance ballooned. Even by 1972, it was apparent that the Society should organize a formal annual meeting to provide continued education in Southern California in a larger venue. The Sportsman's Lodge was just too small now. The Erwin Garden Hotel in India Wells, California, the Palm Springs area, was chosen and hosted the SCVS in April 1973. The program agenda was similar to a postgraduate course with special emphasis on clinically relevant topics. 250 surgeons registered to attend. 3 speakers were invited: Tony Imperato from NYU, Felix Escott from St. Mary's, London, and David Hume from UVA. The first annual event was a success by all accounts, save one. David Hume was the chairman of surgery at the Medical College of Virginia and a transplant surgeon. He is credited as one of the pioneers in kidney transplant surgery with a passion for vascular surgery. After the meeting ended, he left Van Nuys in his own plane and lost power, crashing into the Santa Susana Mountains. A special event at the next year's meeting was a tribute to David Hume given by Jerome Sachs, who had been a resident under Dr. Hume. The Society then created the Hume Memorial Lectureship, which was a yearly event until 2003, when it was changed to a lecture given only for outstanding achievement in vascular surgery as determined by the Executive Council of the Society. Wiley Barker, one of the founding members and chief of vascular surgery at UCLA, arranged for future programs to be co-sponsored by UCLA. The first joint symposium was held in Palm Springs in 1974. Leadership for this and subsequent meetings fell upon Peter Samuels, representing the Society, and Herb McLetter, representing UCLA. The early meetings continue with the format of a postgraduate course plus invited faculty, but one session was always dedicated to the presentation of papers by members. Over the years, there was an increase in the number and quality of the abstracts submitted, resulting in a gradual increase in the proportion of the program dedicated to contributions from members. In 1976, Dr. Samuels initiated negotiations with Dr. Robert Zollinger, the editor of the American Journal of Surgery. This resulted in the August 1977 issue having a section for papers from the Symposium. The first issue had 56 pages dedicated to the SCVS, including 7 papers from the invited faculty and 7 papers submitted by the members. This dedicated issue in the American Journal of Surgery for papers presented at the annual symposium continued for many decades. By 1996, the entire 120-page issue was completely filled with 29 papers presented at the symposium. Although initially most of the members were from Southern California, there was a progressive increase in representation from all parts of the country. By early 1980s, there was growing pressure from members outside of California to hold meetings in other parts of the country, but the co-sponsorship by UCLA limited the venues to Southern California. Change started slow, with Robert Blumenberg from Schenectady, New York, becoming the first president outside of California in 1981. The Vascular Quality Initiative, or VQI, is well known to most of you. It is a database that helps track demographics, procedural details, and outcomes. It was born out of the Vascular Study Group of New England. However, in 1980, national databases to track patients were not commonplace in all specialties, especially vascular surgery. Bob Blumenberg and the EC of the SCVS set up a registry, and the initial experience was published in 1983. Thereafter, when individuals were accepted into the SCVS, membership required participation in a national database of procedures and outcomes. This was a mandatory policy. You had to participate to be a member. Remember, most outcomes in vascular surgery in the 1980s were authored by physicians at university hospitals. There was an assumption that they had access to better facilities and perhaps selected patients. The community surgeons felt their institutions could have reasonable outcomes as well, but wanted proof. That discussion at the SCVS leadership of the SCVS culminated in 1981 with an organized registry. This database was overseen by Alistair Carmody, a Trinidad-born vascular surgeon trained in the Royal College of Surgeons. He first came to Albany, New York, working at the Veterans Hospital in 1970, and then moved to Albany Medical College, where he rose to the rank of professor of surgery in 1980. He and Bob Leather had created a database for in situ leg bypasses several years prior. Kate Fitzgerald was a nurse in Albany who helped oversee both databases. Alistair was charged with development of the product and oversight. Kate Fitzgerald, who I had the fortune to work with until she died in 2008, actually did most of the work. A more detailed and longer-term experience with the SCVS registry data was published in a 1984 JVS article, as shown here. I've included some of the data entry forms. After Alistair Carmody died in 1986, unexpectedly from gastric cancer as president of SCVS, no one took over that society role, and the SCVS registry simply ended. Herb Dardick, who most of you know, was a New Jersey community surgeon who joined the society at its inception and became a driving force with Peter Samuels. Herb Dardick is by far one of the most important and influential members of this society. He and the society's leadership had a vision that this growing Southern California group could be a successful national society, but internal management was becoming a significant burden. When the Southern California Vascular Surgery Society was established in 1980, It took over as the regional group in the LA area and further paved the way for SCVS expansion. Herb discussed these issues with Wes Moore, who had just taken over the chief role in the UCLA practice. Wes felt this society could grow nationally and agreed with plans for an amicable termination of its association with UCLA. The executive committee then searched for a management company. Herb Dardick, in his role as the immediate past president at that time, knew the PRR president Bill Maloney. Herb pitched a relationship that would guide their vision. Bill wholeheartedly agreed, and PRI remains our management company today. They have helped us for 36 years, with Stan Alger taking over as executive director in 2007. In 1980, Larry Ollier, pictured on the left, joined the faculty and staff at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. There he founded the Division of Vascular Surgery, initiated an accredited vascular surgery training program, and started a research program in vascular surgery. As this transformation of the SCVS was occurring, Larry was a prominent member of the academic vascular world, and he, like many academic vascular surgeons at that time, was unsure if the SCVS would ever truly blossom. He decided to give the SCVS a chance. To test the waters, he called on a young vascular surgery fellow named Peter Glavitsky, pictured on the right, to submit research to the annual SCVS meeting with a medical student named Paul Klaus. They submitted an abstract entitled Patency of Polytetrafluoroethylene Microarterial Prostheses Improved by Ibuprofen. In this study, a small PTFE graft was implanted in rat aortas. 10 were treated with ibuprofen as a platelet inhibitor, and 10 were not. All 10 grafts in rats treated with ibuprofen were patent at 30 days, and only one of the 10 without platelet inhibition was patent at 30 days. The abstract was accepted, presented, and actually won the Peter Samuels Award. The experience was so positive that Larry decided that the SCVS was a quality investment, and he remains a true SCVS supporter to this day. The executive committee of the society decided that the annual symposium needed a boost, so they asked Herb to call on Larry to help plan the trajectory of the society over the next decade to discuss how to attract a larger audience. Larry Hollier was kind enough to take my phone call and provided details of their discussions. He told the SCVS leadership that they needed to do 3 things consistently. 1, have prominent invited speakers on the status of vascular surgery. 2, have a prominent international speaker give the perspective of our specialty outside the U.S. 3, involve the young vascular surgeons and the trainees in the society so they can bring their energy and their education and be educated in the process. He was right. We have an annual invited distinguished lecture. I invited Mike Conti this year to review lower extremity revascularization in the wake of the BEST trial results. We have an international session with 3 individuals based outside the U.S., and Enrico Asher, Michelle Macaron, and Alan Lumsden have helped moderate that event for decades. As far as involving trainees, I can think of no other society that has embraced resident and fellow education more than the SCVS with our Fellows Conference and Top Gun competition. It turned out that the relationship between Herb Dardick as a private practitioner and Larry Ollier as an academic surgeon at the Mayo Clinic gave credibility to the SCVS and was an endorsement that propelled this UCLA-based group into the mainstream of American vascular surgery. The society flourished and grew in membership. The 1986 annual symposium was held in Orlando, Florida. This was the first meeting outside of Southern California and resulted in an increase in membership from Eastern and Midwest states, further contributing to the national nature of SCVS. James McKittrick was president. His presidential address, similar to mine, was a review of the society's history and status. To give you a sense of meeting content, just a decade after its origin, I've included some of the agenda. There were 4 sessions from invited faculty, including an international invited speaker to run postgraduate sessions on interesting topics. For this symposium, Dr. Ollier invited Avril Olive Mansfield, a consultant vascular surgeon from the UK who incidentally became the first British woman to be appointed professor of surgery in 1993. Talk about vision to identify an international pioneer in our specialty back in 1986. There were 16 podium presentations from the membership that included the likes of Tony Sadawe, Diraj Shah, and Enrico Asher. This was double the number from the annual meeting a decade before. The Society was transitioning from invited topic reviews to presentations by members with new science. The SCVS Executive Committee in the 1986 program book is listed here. Alistair Carmody was president-elect and transitioned to president at the 1986 business meeting. He died several months later while in office from gastric cancer. At that point, Sheldon Levin took over. I was disappointed that our program books and the website has not acknowledged Dr. Carmody as a past president. To that end, I asked SCVS staff to update our records and acknowledge his status. In 1987, Herb Dardick initiated a regular publication of the Society newsletter, a first among the vascular societies. Through the years, the newsletter helped to provide information about the symposium, as well as other affairs of the Society. Case reports and historical information was included, as well as newly released provocative research. Fast forward now a decade. As most of you know, Kim Hodson embraced endovascular technologies in the early 1990s. He first submitted a manuscript entitled Incorporation of Endovascular Training into a Vascular Fellowship Program to the SVS in 1994, but it was rejected. He therefore submitted it to the SCVS, where it was accepted for the 1995 SCVS meeting in Fort Lauderdale. As an aside, it was nice to see Ash Manzoor, our president-elect, was a co-author on that abstract. Bruce Brenner, who Kim had never previously met, was the incoming SCVS president, and Bruce was enthusiastic about the presentation. They discussed the value in creating training opportunities for young faculty at venues such as the SCVS, and Kim subsequently proposed the first hand-on endovascular course for the following year's meeting in 1996 during Bruce Brenner's presidential year. This was a significant deviation from the usual SCVS meeting in a number of ways. First, the SCVS had never before offered any kind of separate programming supplemental to the main meeting, nor had they ever had industry support for a separate session. Furthermore, the SCVS meeting had always had an unprogrammed afternoon for a golf tournament that was considered sacred. Using this time was definitely controversial. In any event, there was open time during the typical span of the meeting to accommodate an afternoon of programming for those so inclined, and since industry would be footing the bill and Bruce Brenner as president championed the concept, the Society opted to proceed. Despite many concerns about its potential failure, the course sold out. At this time, the primary attendees were practicing vascular surgeons, heavily private practice, since fellows did not typically attend the annual meeting. The endovascular symposium offered at the SCVS meeting was financially sound, and it put the Society at the forefront of endovascular postgraduate training to this day. In the year 2000, President Peter Glavitsky felt the American Journal of Surgery was not the right publication for our society. He discussed the possibility of having manuscripts from the SCVS annual meeting be published in the Journal of Vascular Surgery. Wayne Johnston, editor at that time, welcomed the concept. Therefore, all abstracts presented from the year 2000 annual symposium onward would be included in JVS. The last part of that change was for Peter to contact Hiram Polk, who was the editor-in-chief at the American Journal of Surgery. I'll leave it to say that Hiram was not very happy, but I'm happy to report that Peter was unscathed after that discussion. Up through the 1990s, poster sessions were quite a bland concept. Focus was placed on podium presentations. Not many meeting registrants would even review the poster abstracts. Peter Glavitsky and President-elect Marshall Webster decided that the poster competition at our annual meeting needed an overhaul. To that end, Peter Lawrence, who had just left Salt Lake City for Los Angeles, was charged with redesigning posters at the year 2000 meeting. Peter helped to increase the number of accepted posters dramatically, as well as group them into categories. He designed a poster competition with presentations and appointed judges to oversee their work. The Alistair Carmody Award was therefore redesigned for the best content and oral presentation overall winner of that event. The first recipient in 2000 was our current recorder, Peter Ferries and colleagues. Congratulations, Peter, for receiving that honor. Multiple societies then recognized the value in posters as a whole, as well as formal poster competitions. They add to the overall meeting attendance, add to the number of individuals, especially trainees, provide an opportunity to present, and offer an exciting session for attendees. Without the vision to overhaul that session by Glavitsky and Webster, and without the creative solution developed by Peter Lawrence, poster sessions in every vascular surgery society might be quite different today. Prior to the year 2000, the SCVS had a dual position entitled Secretary-Treasurer for one individual to manage both. As you would expect, focus was mostly on the meeting and not on the finances. The society had always gotten by without scrutiny of the details and the spending, so no one really reviewed the specifics. But the society was growing significantly, so then President Jim Manzoyan decided to separate the roles, and Bill Brown was asked to step into the newly created position of treasurer. Bill was an excellent choice. He's a professor of law in the Michigan State University College of Law, as well as a professor of surgery in the William Beaumont School of Medicine. He is a detail man if there ever was one. We all have interacted with lawyers at one time or another, so you know what I'm talking about. His review of the SCVS finances over the following year brought forth some concerning news. The society was actually going bankrupt. It was in the red by $58,000. How was the society going to hold further symposiums? Should they declare bankruptcy? Bill had an idea. He had a good relationship with someone at W.L. Gore for many years. Marty Sylvain was a local Michigan rep with Bill as they both started their careers, and Marty had advanced into the higher echelon at Gore in the early 2000s. Bill explained the issue, and Marty then discussed it with his colleagues at W.L. Gore. Remember the frame of reference. At that time, everything was moving toward endovascular. Gore was working on its EVAR device, as were other companies. Many felt that open surgery was going to go away completely within the next decade. The SVS was not receptive to the less invasive techniques, but the national membership of the SCVS seemed to be leading the charge as a more progressive group. Gore, at Marty's request, decided to give the SCVS a $58,000 donation with no quid pro quo. There was no list of demands or requirements. They also felt they needed to ensure the SCVS survival moving forward, so they agreed to pay the registration and dues for all fellows. There were about 80 per year. This would then steadily increase the SCVS membership, and the newly inducted individuals would then be able to fund the society with annual dues after they graduated and took staff jobs. And it worked. Our society is as strong as ever with significant reserve funds today. We owe Marty Sylvain for his assistance in our time of need. That is why Marty was awarded honorary membership in 2018, the only non-physician member of the SCVS as of today. Thank you again, Marty. In 2002, vascular care was undergoing a transition. Vascular surgeons were becoming physicians who treated patients medically, diagnose with non-invasive methods, perform endovascular techniques, and reconstruct with open surgery. Outcomes were felt important, and the training paradigm was being questioned. Enrico Asher's 2002 SCVS presidential address was the first to outline this transformation into a vascular specialist, encourage vascular partnerships with other specialties to maximize best patient care, proposed a new 5-year paradigm for vascular surgery training, and encouraged an accreditation process with extramural review. In 2003, as Kim Hodgson entered his presidential year with the endovascular program well established and on autopilot, he set his presidential focus on expanding SCVS attendance and ultimately membership by making it a fellows meeting with a formal fellows program. There was an opportunity at that time because W.L. Gore had a long-running graduating fellows meeting that they would hold in Flagstaff, Phoenix, where they would host, that is, pay all expenses for, the fellows for a weekend of educational programming and product marketing. The AdvaMed Code of Ethics was a rising tide of scrutiny, and the longevity of this company-sponsored meeting was in question. Kim approached Don Lass and ultimately Marty Sylvain with the idea of moving their fellows meeting to the front end of the SCVS meeting. It was a bit of a hard sell, but the Gore leadership agreed and switched their meeting to the SCVS in 2004, boosting SCVS visibility, meeting attendance, and ultimately membership. At our and many annual symposia, most of you are familiar with the concept of rapid-fire presentations. These are the 3-minute, faster-paced talks with more limited discussion. They allow more author groups podium time. What you may not be familiar with is that it really didn't exist in society meetings until just shy of 20 years ago. When Tony Sanawi was in his SCVS presidency from 2005 to 2006, he came up with the idea while planning for the 2006 meeting in Las Vegas. He was so excited about it, he discussed the Riga organization with Enrico Asher, who was the SVS president at that time, and Enrico agreed and felt the SVS needed to do this as well. As you know, the SCVS meeting is in March, and the SVS meeting is in June, so both meetings in 2006 included rapid-paced presentations, but the origination of the idea was through our society and is spread to most national and regional meetings. In 2008, the 29th president of this society was Keith Calligaro. His presidential address was entitled Without Prejudice. In it, he states, and I quote, "I was struck by a comment that Peter Glavitsky made when he announced that the new president of this society would be Enrico Asher. Peter stated quite proudly to the audience that he was glad the new incoming president also had an accent. Keith's 4 grandparents had very strong accents, so Peter's comments resonated. He also identified that the majority of early SCVS presidents were immigrants themselves, and he opined that these individuals were recognized and rewarded for their efforts without regard to their accent or background, but instead were chosen without prejudice for their talents and abilities. In 2008, before the 3 letters DEI were a topic of medical society discussions, he asked of the SCVS, "Have we done everything we possibly can to be inclusive? Although I believe the past leaders of this society have acted without prejudice when choosing future leaders, we can do more. We need to be more inclusive of females, African Americans, Asians, Hispanics, and other minorities as officers of this and other societies." Keith's insight 15 years ago at this podium are to be commended. If we only had taken that charge and ran with it sooner. But I'm happy to report that Will Jordan and Karen Rockman have taken the wheel, creating an ad hoc DEI committee that will hopefully be a permanent committee after the upcoming business meeting, codified in our bylaws and incorporated into all of our society structure and into our annual symposium. Keith, you were right. Over the years of offering the endovascular postgraduate courses and symposia, the training models significantly improved, as did the anatomic areas that were being treated. Significant advances were made in simulation, which improved simulator fidelity and reproducibility. This set the stage for Alan Lumpson, the president in 2009, to initiate the Top Gun competition. He worked with industry to create a Las Vegas-style showdown that draws in a large portion of the SCVS annual meeting attendees to cheer and jeer their fellows, residents, friends, and colleagues. The feedback has been tremendous year after year, and with Mal Sheehan as the MC over the past few years, remains a highlight of our society. As I spent several months thinking about what to put in this address, I saw a TED Talk by Robert Waldinger. In the talk, he reviewed the Grant study. This was a study of adult development through Harvard Medical School, a 75-year longitudinal study starting in 1938. It followed 268 Harvard-educated men, mostly from the undergraduate classes of 42, 43, and 44, with interviews every 2 years, including medical exams, blood work, and radiologic testing. The goal of the study was to identify predictors of healthy aging. A second parallel cohort of 456 disadvantaged non-delinquent inner-city youths were also assessed in the GLUEC study. These individuals were found in Boston neighborhoods between 1940 and 45. They had the same interview, exam, blood work, and imaging. Together, the 724 men were followed, with 60 still alive in 2015. This was started by Dr. George Valiant, and the leadership was transferred to 3 subsequent study leads, with the 4th and current lead of this study being Robert Waldinger at MGH. The most notable Grant study participant included Ben Bradley, an editor of the Washington Post, and U.S. President John F. Kennedy. Findings in these individuals concluded that cholesterol levels at 50 did not predict quality of life, mortality, or happiness. However, in a quantified way, the presence of good, healthy interpersonal relationships was the #1 predictor leading to lifelong happiness and healthiness. They were also significantly correlated to improved memory and a lack of cognitive decline through 80 years. It turns out that if you believe this 75-year Harvard study, we need human interaction to thrive. I believe this society has succeeded through the years because of our close-knit relationships in the vascular surgery world. Our committees and councils have worked together seamlessly to achieve the care of the vascular patient as well as the vascular specialist, which has resulted in the last decade alone with hundreds of fellows being trained in the Top Gun initiative, over 400 JVS publications, and several hundred plenary presentations. The Society for Clinical Vascular Surgery has grown over the past 50 years. It began in Southern California to fill a void that vascular surgeons had in private practice. Now, it has a membership of nearly 1,800, the premier U.S. vascular resident and fellow training symposium, and a history of leaders that through their hard work and strong interpersonal relationships has changed the face of vascular surgery as we know it. Leaders like Peter Samuels, Cy Greenstone, Wiley Barker, Herb Dardick, Larry Ollier, Peter Glavitsky, Kim Hodgson, Tony Sadawe, Peter Lawrence, and the list goes on. They have brought us to this 50th anniversary meeting, 50 years strong. As I hope you have seen, the Society has vision, helped embrace change, and pushed the limits when others did not, helping both patients and vascular providers across all specialties. What we take for granted today was not always the case and has been forged through the labors of this membership. I am humbled to be standing here in front of you as president. I can only hope that we continue this great mission, work together, be inclusive, push the envelope, and make the next 50 years just as spectacular. Thank you.